Welcome, citizens of the verse. Valsim here. Welcome back to the channel. I was actually in the middle of preparing a ship review video on the Fortune when patch 4.2 dropped. It came with a host of quality of life improvements like increased ammo capacity for several ships and the amazing new ability to call your atlases directly from the freight elevator. That's a huge time saver, especially when you are gearing up for large operations with multiple participants. But today's video isn't about those changes. This video is about something different, something major that CAG introduced in patch 4.2. The new ship behavior in atmosphere. Ships now respond dynamically to weather conditions and wind. That means no more sitting still like you are locked in place. Instead, your ship now wobbles or sways when close to the ground. I'm not sure if this is a stepping stone towards CAG's long-term vision. Maybe it's connected to their early comments about how large ships like the Polaris shouldn't be able to hover nose down indefinitely. But the effects are already here and they have had a noticeable impact on gameplay. One of the most affected activities is solo surface mining with the mole. Before, you could leave your ship hovering while you mined. Now, not so much. The mole moves with the wind and weather conditions, making it almost impossible for a solo miner to stay at the mining seat while also keeping the ship in position. Are there other gameplay loops being affected by this new system? And what does this mean for average pilots like me? Is flying in atmosphere now harder to manage? I will be diving into those questions and more in this video as I test a few ships to see how they behave under this new flight dynamics. At the end, I will share my personal conclusions. Here, the flight test lineup. First, I will start with a small ship, the F7C, a medium fighter. Next up, the Asgard. Then I will test the Prospector, followed by the Starlancer TAC. The most important test for me personally will be with the C2, since it's my go-to ship for all my hauling missions. Finally, I will take the Polaris for a spin to see how it handles in the hands of an average pilot like myself. You can watch all the tests or just jump to the ship that you want to see his behavior. I will do the same test with all ships, taking off just a little bit above the ground in my hangar and do not touching anything with my keyboard, mouse or joysticks. I just leave the ship like that above the ground, and you see for both ships there is a very little wobbling, but it's there. If I use the VTOLs with the Asgard, I don't see a big difference, maybe a little bit more stability, but from both ships you see well this kind of little left right wobbling, and I stay like that. I do not touch anything on the ships. So for the F7C and for the Asgard, the impact, I would say, is not big. And now I try with the Asgard to go without the VTOL, and it is stable, no issue about that. After staying a little bit in the air, after that I will try and land the ship by moving a little bit forward to see how he's landing. You should keep the control, but it is acceptable for the Asgard and for F7C. Continue the test with the Prospector and the Starlancer TAC. For me personally, the Prospector is important because I use it for mining, and although I go most at Iron Hollow, it's interesting for me to see how he behaves, because it will be more difficult when I go to mine on the moon side. There is wobbling, but not very much pronounced. The Starlancer TAC, as you can see, it is much more stable, and the impact, it is not big. There is here, you see, there is this left-right wobbling with the Prospector, so definitely that will be more challenging when you go on the atmosphere or near the ground, and you have to point like that to a rock and to start mining. If the Prospector is wobbling, then it will be a little bit more difficult to stay concentrate and to point on the same direction to mine the rock. But I would say is acceptable for both ships. Next is the C2, and here I will do a full test, like taking off here from New Babbage hangars, then landing and taking off from Port Tressler at space station, and will try to make the test useful for you. So in the hangar, like with the other ships, I don't see big interference with this new ship behavior based on the atmosphere. No big wobbling here about the C2, so he is almost stable with or without a VTOL use. So this is positive for the C2 when at New Babbage or ground station. I continue my extended test with the C2 about the wiggling or wobbling behavior, and now I'm entering at Port Tressler hangar. What? I cannot control the ship. Come on, oh, you see that? It's really very difficult, and I don't touch anything, and if I try, the ship is not responding to my action. And I just quickly wanted to land the ship so the hangar can close. Now I try to turn to the left and the ship is not turning. That is not logic. We are in space. Come on, there is no atmosphere here, no wind, nothing. Why this should happen like that? It's very difficult for me as average pilot, but I think it will be difficult for any pilot. This is total nonsense. Nothing is working. If I want now to move my ship backwards, this is impossible. With the thrusters or what? let's take out the VTOL. Really annoying. And he's going just maybe the VTOL, yeah. And then down. Come on, down. Okay. Maybe the VTOL is playing something. He's wiggling too much. You see, I cannot even... What the hell? I don't like it. And that's the reason I wanted to test with the C2, because this is, for most of the players, the main cargo ship. And it's impossible to have such a problem in space, inside the hangar. Why the ship is wiggling so much? It is really not okay, CIG. Why you did that? Now we are back at Port Tressler, and after our last bad experience with the new system and wiggling ship, I will try now not to open the VTOL, so to be without the VTOL, to see how this will handle. The problem is with the VTOL not on, the C2 is a little bit larger, but let's check now. Request departure permission.
That's affirmative, Commander.
And now, because of this wiggling, you stay on ground until the doors are open. At least I think that this is the best solution. And you have to quit as quick as possible. It's difficult. It's very difficult, especially for not experienced pilots. I don't understand why it's like that. I really don't understand. What's the purpose of all this? Okay, to be more realistic. At atmosphere, above ground, we are here in space. And in a hangar. That's not good. At least I think that's not good. The final test for the C2 will be to land at spaceport to check how handles with this new behavior about wobbling near to the ground because of the wind or atmospheric behavior. So hopefully, it's not perfect, but hopefully for the space station the landing it's okay. It is not much trouble compared to the Port Tressler landing experience I had. There is still this kind of wiggling, but without the VTOL, it's better. The last test that we'll do, it is with the Polaris. And I don't see much wobbling, hopefully. I don't know if it's due to the fact that it's a big, heavier ship, but you see the difference between now, the Polaris, and the C2, how handling, staying close above the ground. The difference is huge, and I think that something went wrong with the C2, because with the Polaris I don't see any big issue. The ship is behaving normally. That should be the case. We are in a hangar. Nothing to give us a remark. Everything looks stable with the Polaris. No issue. So how this is possible?
Retracted.
So, what are my final thoughts? Honestly, I'm a bit confused. Not all ships behave the same way in atmosphere, and the differences aren't always consistent. I'm not a professional pilot, so everything I say is based purely on how each ship feels during flight. What I have noticed is this: smaller ships tend to wobble more when close to the ground. Bigger ships, on the other hand, feel more stable, with one big exception, the C2. Activating VTOL thrusters also seems to increase the wobble when you are near the ground. Is that intentional? I'm not sure, but it makes landing more difficult for me. I have actually started avoiding VTOL during takeoff and landing, and that seems to reduce the shaking slightly. Now, a special note about the C2 behavior, which for me has been the worst, especially inside hangars at space stations. I tested this at Port Tressler and I was shocked. I mean, what weather conditions can there even be in space, let alone inside a hangar? But the C2 wobbled so much I nearly crashed multiple times. Landing, it felt far more difficult than it should. I won't go as far as saying solo hauling missions are dead, just like I wouldn't say solo servers mining with the mole is impossible, but they are definitely harder now. And considering the C2 is currently the best solo hauler for players with member level reputation and above, that's a big concern. The strange thing is, this intense wobble only happens in hangars at space stations. I had some light shaking at my hangar in New Babbage, but nothing alarming. I also tested the C2 in atmosphere outside of New Babbage and the ship was stable. So why the extreme wobble inside space station hangars? Have any of you experienced the same issue with the C2? I would love to hear your thoughts. If this video and my testing helped you out, let me know with a like. Drop your thoughts or questions in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more Star Citizen tips, deep dives and gameplay insights. Until next time, fly safe, haul smart, and I will see you in the verse.